Hi, I'm Captain Peters. I'm a public health officer at Bradley Air National Guard Base. On the outside, I've worked as an infectious disease epidemiologist, and I've worked in public health for more than 15 years.
Hi, I'm Captain Joseph Zell. I'm a physician in the Connecticut Army National Guard. I'm also a physician down at Yale in the Occupational and Environmental Medicine Department, specializing in occupational and environmental exposures, specifically COVID-19.
Doc Zell, I had a few questions for you today because we had some vaccination clinics over the weekend and we had a lot of questions come up about the safety of the vaccine. One of the questions I had today is about how early on we are in studying this new vaccine. The concerns out there are that it hasn't been studied on enough people and they want to find out what are the long-term effects of this vaccine before some soldiers or airmen would get it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Captain Peters, and I appreciate you being here today to ask me some of these questions, which I think are kind of circulating out in the force right now. So when we talk about an EUA, FDA, this whole confusing process about how new is this vaccine, where is it coming from, the FDA doesn't have quite enough scientific evidence to say we fully clear this vaccine for use in the general population. But during a pandemic, they have the opportunity to use what's called an EUA, an emergency use authorization. This EUA is built upon the principle of risk versus benefit discussion. So knowing what COVID-19 is doing in our community, both in terms of deaths, but also long-term health outcomes amongst the entire population, the vaccine's safety profile has been rigorously studied that it outweighs the risks of a COVID-19 infection. So again, the COVID-19 vaccine itself has been deemed so much safer than the virus and being infected with the virus that the FDA has said very comfortably, we're going to give this vaccine an EUA approval. It's that important that we start putting it into our citizens.
And originally these vaccines were studied on over 60,000 people. But I read today on the CDC, they posted that over 5 million people since the vaccine was given the EUA approval have received the vaccine in the populations that are being vaccinated at this point.
You're right. So we are quickly, hopefully faster than we are, moving towards vaccinating a large population around the world with this vaccine. And of those more than 5 million people, we've seen limited side effects and very, very few adverse events. And I know the media does a great job pointing out the adverse events because I think it would be rather boring for the media to list off all the successful cases associated with this vaccine.
Some of the other concerns are that this vaccine is different. We've had many types of vaccine in the past, live vaccine, vaccines that have dead virus in them. How is this different with the messenger RNA versus the vaccines we've seen in the past?
Yeah, so previous vaccines, they've kind of been around for a while. The technology on how we vaccinated in the past, using either a live attenuated vaccine, which is a weakened version of a virus that we're trying to stop, or even particles of a virus that we want to teach our body to resist against. So typically those materials might be injected into a person and to stimulate their immune response. mRNA is a much cleaner, much more efficient vaccination system right now. It has less ingredients, and the mRNA process is like an instruction manual for our cells. So Captain Peters, I might give you a memo and say, hey, read up on this and you'll learn something from it, and we communicate with paper. The way I communicate with the cells in your body is I put this instruction manual in the form of mRNA. The cell finds it, it reads it just like a piece of paper, learns, and then puts out a spike protein for the rest of the body to learn from that manual that it saw, read, understood, and became the subject matter expert within the body on it.
Thank you for that, Doc. Additionally, we had questions about fertility. Some of the women and even some of the men were concerned that there would be long-lasting effects on fertility after they get the vaccine. Can you speak to that at all?
Sure. So for men as a whole, there have been no associations with infertility. The mRNA does not go into the sperm cells. It's utilized by other immunogenic cells in our body. And so from a male perspective, right off the bat, there's no evidence to be concerned about that. From a female perspective, the evidence is not there in either a positive or negative way to say what this vaccine is going to do because we don't study pregnant populations. They're a high-risk population as a whole. What we do have is a basis of information, strong enough information that shows, because women have become pregnant after receiving the vaccine and during the trials, that it is relatively safe for pregnant women, for women who wish to become pregnant, and even for lactating mothers who are breastfeeding their infants. It has been deemed so safe compared to COVID-19, the actual viral infection itself, that the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists has come out and said, we fully support this. We fully support women who wish to become pregnant, women who are currently pregnant, and women who are breastfeeding their children to get the mRNA vaccine today, because it is that much safer than the virus itself. The virus has caused women to lose their babies, go into labor early, and have significant long-term health outcomes associated from that infection with COVID-19.
Thank you. Additionally, there's other long-lasting effects from COVID that would be something we wouldn't want to get. Well, the vaccine itself has some basic side effects like I would expect with flu vaccine. Is that correct?
You're right again. So when we talk about a vaccination process, we need to identify two different things. We need to identify side effects. These are things that we expect to happen. Just like if I had you take ibuprofen, I would say, hey, Captain Peters, take this ibuprofen with food because we expect you to possibly have an upset stomach. That's a side effect of the drug that we want you to take to treat some pains. This vaccine is a foreign object going into your body, so that we expect some side effects. We documented those side effects during the trials. Those side effects are things that we expect to happen that shouldn't harm you or cause long-term outcomes. Things such as arm pain in your deltoid muscle where the injection site has been. That's been by and far the most common side effect that we've seen. Headaches have also occurred in some individuals. Generalized fatigue, which is a fancy word for saying being tired. And then maybe even some body aches and the occasional elevated temperature. And those are the known side effects that we kind of anticipate with a vaccine. That's your body revving up to this instruction manual that we gave your body to say, hey, this is a scary thing, get ready, and it's doing its job. It found the instruction manual and it's working hard. What we don't see usually and what we don't expect is the things that we call adverse events. So adverse events are anything that isn't expected that might be associated with the vaccine but not necessarily caused by it. So on the media, you might have seen individuals passing out on camera. Those individuals didn't pass out on camera because COVID-19, the vaccine, caused them to pass out. They passed out because they were poked by a needle and they had what's called a vasovagal response. And for whatever reason, their body's reaction to being poked by a needle, they passed out. You can see it with individuals who give blood, and you can even see it with individuals who receive tattoos.
Okay. Thank you for that. The other question I have is, me as a young, healthy soldier or airman, I'm concerned that why should I get the vaccine when there's elderly people that need it, when there's other folks on the front lines that may be more potential for exposure than I would? Why should I go get it right now when we could maybe give it to somebody else?
Right. So when we talk about vaccinating the population, there's no perfect methodology. And what you're describing is the altruistic nature within many of us to say, listen, my risk for an outcome is low compared to my grandmother or somebody in a nursing home. But what you have to remember, Captain Peters, is that we are operating within our communities and we become spreaders for the virus within our communities. So while we're all on these enduring operations and we're out here doing things that help keep our state safe and our family members safe and working towards getting to a place where COVID-19 is not so impactful, we could potentially spread the virus to our loved ones. So it's important to not only vaccinate our high-risk populations, but vaccinate those individuals operating within this atmosphere. And that not only protects us, but it also will protect our families because we become less likely to spread it. Also, when we're talking about ourselves, again, we don't want to measure death as the outcome associated with COVID-19. That's the scary outcome, that's the one that the media focuses on. But there are a lot of soldiers and airmen out there suffering other health outcomes from COVID-19. Including respiratory changes, where their lung tissue has changed in a way that now requires asthma medication or has impacted their ability to do the same enduring and physical measures they used to be able to do. Heart changes, with new changes in their heart beating process, what we call an arrhythmia. So now they're having extra beats, they might be skipping beats. Other organ changes along with their kidney, increased risk of clotting. So we've seen things that aren't just death that can impact somebody for the rest of their lives. 40, 50, 60, 70 years of a long-term health outcome associated from COVID-19.
Okay, so it's not only protecting me to get this shot, but it's also going to make sure that my family members, my parents, grandparents, my children, that they're all protected because I have the shot, even though they don't have access to it yet.
You're exactly right.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Doc. I really appreciate your time and answering some of these questions. I know a lot of the soldiers and airmen out there have the same questions, and hopefully this helps them in answering them so that they have the facts they need to make this informed decision.
Yeah, Captain Peters, I appreciate being here, and as always, people can reach out to me or the FHP team if they have specific questions or concerns. We're here to be helpful during this process.
Thanks a lot, Doc.
Yep.